Hello everyone, thanks for joining us for another edition of Texas Insider TV, brought to you by SpeedStream. I'm Jim Cardle. As chairman of the Science and Space Technology Committee in the U.S. House of Representatives and immediate past chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, Congressman Lamar Smith from District 21 and the San Antonio-Bexar County area has been a longtime conservative leader for the state of Texas. We're pleased to be able to visit today with Congressman Lamar Smith.
With you.
Congressman, thanks for joining us. You've been here before. Appreciate you always taking the time as a leader in the U.S. Capitol up in D.C. But if we can jump right in, because there's a number of issues you've got your fingers in the middle of. And first up, on a lot of people's minds, the Senate here in the last week or two has passed a quote-unquote immigration reform bill. Big, huge issue, been addressed, tried to be addressed for decades. We might or might not get there. The word is on the street things are going to go slow in the House, but give us an update. What's your perspective in the House for
Jim,
immigration?
Be happy to. Basically, the Senate bill is unconstitutional, unworkable, and I cannot believe it would be supported by the American people when they find out that the legalization of 11 to 12 million people, the amnesty for 11 to 12 million people in the country illegally is occurring in 6 months, and we might never ever get to border security. We need to have border security first. That's the House approach. As you said, I'm on the Judiciary Committee. We've already passed 4 immigration bills in the House.
Okay.
And one of them happens to be a bill that I introduced. It has to do with basically verifying the status of workers, and it's called E-Verify. It's supported by 85% of the American people. We need to hire legal workers in this country and save jobs for unemployed and underemployed American workers. Something like 22 million people now in the United States are unemployed or underemployed, meaning they're working part-time, they want to work full-time. Those jobs that go to illegal workers should be going to unemployed American workers, and that's the basis of the bill that I introduced and that passed the Judiciary Committee. Other bills that we passed in the House: very robust guest worker program, good border and interior security bill, and then also a bill to admit more immigrants on the basis of their skills. It's called sort of a high-tech worker bill, and we need those individuals in this country. They can get jobs, they can take care of their families, they can contribute to the economy. So we're off to a good start in the House, but we are not going to do the comprehensive approach that we consider to be unworkable that the Senate came up with. We're going to do individual bills. We might join them on the House floor, but we want to go through the hearing process, the committee process, and not just sort of unveil, as the Senate did, a 1,200-page bill that no one had ever seen before.
Well, you mentioned a couple things there. I know the piecemeal effort has seemed to have been resonating with the American, certainly the Texas public, but also the idea of secure the border first.
Right.
Talk about that a little bit, if that's a real possibility for some of these breakout bills.
We are not going to have any immigration bill that passes unless it secures the border first. That's supported by the overwhelming majority of the American people. It happens to be supported by 2/3, 2 to 1 among Hispanic voters as well. I don't know why the Senate would not do it. So we're going to do it right in the House. Secure the border first before we implement any other reforms, and in my view, those other reforms should not include an automatic pathway to citizenship, the greatest honor our country can bestow. So while we do need to, frankly, give extra consideration to some individuals in this country, particularly maybe children who were brought in through no fault of their own, nevertheless, overall, we need to have a very tough bill that frankly secures the border, secures the interior, and then we'll talk about these other issues.
And talk a little bit finally on this issue. One last question. The Senate bill, during their debate, there was that breakthrough the couple weeks out before it was passed about securing the border. From an inside perspective, tell us what you saw there. There was a roadblock, and then all of a sudden this agreement to provide additional drones, additional manpower.
I thought that was all well and good. If the Senate wants to put more Border Patrol agents on the border, I support that. If they want to have more fencing, I support that. Physical barriers are the only thing that really deters illegal immigration. You have an example of that in San Diego. When they put up a physical barrier, illegal immigration went down 95%. So physical barriers do work. But the problem is they put all these extra measures for border security in the bill, and they still didn't have it implemented before the legalization, before the amnesty. So yes, they put some more paint on their product, but it didn't change the underlying dynamics, and they refused to put a trigger in there and say the border had to be secured first, and that's why it was still a flawed product.
And then on another issue, Congressman, let's move to a big topic that has started to resurface in the news, and that's the Obamacare healthcare reform effort. A week ago, it was announced by the administration, the healthcare agencies, that there's going to be a delay. They're having problems writing the huge amount of rules and regulations. You were former chairman of the committee with input in that. What's the outlook for Obamacare?
Right. Well, I thought that was an incredible admission on the part of the administration that Obamacare was not ready for prime time. And this mandate that they've been talking about rolling out, suddenly they've decided in the case of the businesses they weren't going to roll it out and apply it to businesses for a whole year. But they left the mandate in place for individuals. And so we will be having a vote in the House saying, well, if it's good enough for businesses to have it postponed for a year, it's good enough for individuals to have it postponed for a year and not have the mandate apply to individuals while you don't have the mandate apply to businesses. So kind of a double standard there by the administration, saying it's that we're going to give businesses another year to get used to the idea, but we're not going to give individuals another year to get used to the idea. That's going to be hard to defend, and that's why we're going to have a vote delaying the individual mandate a year to bring it in line with the business mandate being delayed a year. By the way, there's a real question here whether the President of the United States can unilaterally, arbitrarily, just on his own, decide not to enforce a law that was duly passed, although I voted against it. And this is just another example, and the view of a lot of us, of the administration deciding that they're either above the law or can ignore the law. The president takes an oath of office to say that he is going to uphold the laws of the land, and now he's saying suddenly, well, I'm going to uphold it, but I'm going to delay it a year. That wasn't an option. That wasn't the way the bill was written.
So there's still obviously a lot to be watching there. And also, if I can, because of something that was not an oath, but it was certainly a campaign promise, was that you can keep your doctor and your premiums won't go up. In fact, you will save money.
Right.
What impact is that cost factor having?
The three promises that President Obama made, you're right. Healthcare costs going down. If you like your physician, you get to keep them. And if you like your insurance policy, you get to keep it too. None of which turned out to be the case. The cost is double, and there's no cost savings. It's actually going up. You can't keep your physician necessarily. You can't keep your insurance plan necessarily. So all those false promises that they used to eke out the votes turned out to be absolutely fraudulent.
Very problematic, to say the least. We'll be talking about that for a while. Folks, again, we're visiting with Congressman Lamar Smith from House District 21 out of San Antonio, chairman of the House Science, Space, and Technology Committee, and also as just former committee chairman for the Judiciary Committee. You have been working on tort reform and improving the legal system in this nation. I know you've just recently introduced a bill. Bring us up to speed on how that might be proceeding on the tort reform issue, if you would.
And you're right, I have introduced this bill in past Congresses. It was time to introduce it again. This is a bill to rein in the frivolous lawsuits that cost people their reputations and livelihoods when they're totally innocent. And it happens thousands of times across the country every month, where individual lawyers will file a lawsuit knowing the lawsuit is frivolous, knowing that it's baseless, knowing that it's without merit, and all they're trying to do is get an out-of-court settlement. It's sort of, I call it legalized extortion. And so they'll file a lawsuit against an individual or a small business. The owner of the small business will realize that if he goes to court, it's going to cost him $50,000, so he'll settle out of court for $10,000. That costs a lot of people a lot of money. Sometimes it puts businesses under, and it certainly costs us a lot of jobs. And so what I'm doing with this Lawsuit Abuse Reduction Act, is to say to federal courts, you are now going to award attorney's fees to the defendant who had this frivolous lawsuit filed against them. And by making the plaintiff's attorney pay the attorney's fees of the defendant, we think that this will slow down a lot of those frivolous lawsuits. But again, it costs a lot of people a lot of money, sometimes their livelihoods, certainly their reputations. And these, frankly, attorneys have been getting away with this for years, and we want to stop it.
And it's a bit of an idea. I know you've been pushing the concept for a while, but certainly here in Texas, Governor Perry's pushed the issue. It's been an economic driver to have security or at least predictability in the economic forecasting for businesses and individuals.
Absolutely. And when you have these lawyers, say, filing a lawsuit against against the TV station for bad weather forecasting, or against a small business cafe because they claim their child was made fat by what he ate there.
The McDonald's hot coffee in the lap was an example.
On the local level, all these lawsuits are just totally frivolous and without merit, and they need to stop. They're hurting too many innocent people.
And then to wrap up and respect your time,
Sure.
Congressman, let you keep moving, to give us an insider perspective. You're running around constantly. People don't realize when you're back in the district as a congressman.
Right.
You've had a busy week. Give us a 48-hour snippet, what you've been doing, where you're going to be,
Okay.
how busy you are.
Well, I do
at this time of year.
come home virtually every weekend back home to Texas. As you pointed out, my home is San Antonio, but I also represent 190,000 people in Travis County. I have 10 counties in my district. It's basically San Antonio to Austin, and includes the Hill Country as well. When I'm back home, I'm working hard and trying to get around the district and meet as many people and constituents and friends as I possibly can. In D.C., I'm in D.C. either Monday through Thursday or Tuesday through Friday. Every one of those days are 15-hour days. I don't think I ever leave my office before 10 o'clock at night, and I get there about 7 in the morning. So we're busy. That comes with being a committee chairman. If I weren't a committee chairman, I don't think I'd be staying in the office so late. But I've got 5 subcommittees I've got to look out for, a lot of legislation that we're considering. And it's an exciting committee, Science, Space, and Technology Committee. It's, the discoveries of science, the exploration of space, and the development of new technologies. What could be more important to our nation's future? So that's why I'm excited to be there.
Well, we appreciate your work in those regards. It's important to the state of Texas. I know you've mentioned it's a bit of a dream job given your technology background and love of space, so we appreciate you coming in.
Thank you, Jim.
Folks, remember to join us for another edition of Texas Insider TV, brought to you by SpeedStream. You're either an insider or you're not. Be sure and join us again in the future. I'm Jim Cardle. Thanks for joining us.